with the magic name of Ferrari, the result was one of racing's legendary pairings of car and driver, like Lotus and Jim Clark, Tyrrell and Jackie Stewart, or McLaren and Ayrton Senna. But when the end came in a tragic crash at Zolder, Belgium in '82, the world mourned a life cut short and a talent snuffed out. But throughout the sport, they still remember Villeneuve. Formula One now seeks a new legend, a talent to erase the pain of a string of savage crashes. Today, perhaps a new Villeneuve will emerge to help carry the sport to the turn of the century. That driver may be found in the land of Villeneuve at the Grand Prix of Canada. The chase for Grand Prix glory is being led by Michael Schumacher.
ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. On an island across the mighty St. Lawrence River from the city of Montreal, for the 16th year, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve plays host to the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Barsha. The weather is changing, and so is my voice, so please bear with me. Following the deaths of Gilles Villeneuve and Riccardo Paletti back in 1982, Formula One embarked on a safety crusade that helped bring about a dozen years of fatality-free racing. Following the deaths of two drivers earlier this year in Imola, Italy, Formula One has again tried to respond. Just below where I'm standing, the new casino chicane will slow the race cars at the fastest part of this circuit. But the Formula One car evolution continues as well. And for more on that, let's join my ESPN colleague, Derek Daly.
The rules of Formula One continue to change in an effort to try and make these cars safer for the drivers. This weekend here in Canada, Williams Grand Prix Engineering have actually addressed the cockpit openings. They've made them wider in an effort to stop the driver striking his head against the front of the cockpit in the event of a heavy front-end collision. Now, this is the latest FW16 chassis here. And all the way through here is now wider than it was before, because earlier these chassis had a V section all the way through here. But now behind the driver, there's another rule change in the airbox. You can no longer have a positive air pressure in the airbox leading into the engine. You have to open it up to relieve that pressure. This is Williams' interpretation of the new rule. The Tyrrell team, they simply chopped the top off their airbox. McLaren, similar to Williams, cut the back end out. Ferrari team cut the side out of theirs. This is Minardi. Simtech has the biggest variety of holes. The Ligier team again cuts the top off. And Benetton, very similar to what Williams did. Now, there are lots more rules that we will deal with as the afternoon goes on here. But for the moment, Bob, it's back to you.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Stay with me, buddy. This broadcast may be yours before long. We'll be right back to Montreal.
This ESPN presentation is being brought to you by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. By Volvo. Volvo reminds you to drive safely. And by your local Yamaha dealer, who invites you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles.
Back live in Montreal, where the sun is broken through. I'm Bob Barsha. It's done nothing for my voice, so let's hear from someone who can speak. Our pit reporter for today's race, here's Rick DeBrule.
Well, you were talking about the weather. The issue with the weather this weekend has been a big one. Yesterday it was actually pretty warm. In fact, when Michael Schumacher got the pole, it was almost downright hot, but it rained overnight, changing the track conditions. And in fact, during this morning's warm-up, Martin Brundle was the fastest. Second and third fastest.
Of Germany, the Benetton-Ford, but only 10th in the morning warm-up. Next to him, Jean Alesi for Ferrari. On row 2.
Pierre Deal, Notre Dame is a used only one time per year racetrack. It's 2.7 miles long. And apart from the new chicane and the fast S's, this track layout is actually largely unchanged in the last 15 years. Lots of chicanes, very much a point squirt, stop and go type of track with very poor grip qualities. The new chicane, Well, that adds about 20 meters to the racetrack, and from inside Mika Häkkinen's car, you can see that it is very open, very slow. However, there are penalties if you do miss the chicane. Brakes and gearboxes, they take a real pounding here.
And so does the fuel tank. Very heavy circuit on fuel. We expect at least 2 stops from everybody. You're riding aboard with the young Scot. David Coulthard has to wonder about...
Mika Häkkinen brings the McLaren in. The rules here are that they can change tires, they can put in fuels, but they can add no other fluids, no other adjustments that they're going to make to the car. Once again, a quick one stop, and they're back out.
A very quick stop indeed for the McLaren boys. And these 2 cars are not the only ones in the pits. Alessandro Zanardi, Johnny Herbert were both in. Mark Blundell has been in. And Eric Comas has just entered the pits.
15 miles an hour. Look at below the front wing of the LaRousse car. They actually have vanes that guide the air under the front wings of this car, hoping to send it down underneath the car in exactly the position they wanted it.
Cleaning the radiators, all important on a circuit like this with so much debris out on the racetrack. Eric Comas launches his LaRousse back onto the racetrack. There is your race leader, Michael Schumacher, coming at you. No pit stop for him this time around, but you can be sure there's one not far away. We'll be back with more in just a moment. From high above the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher leads Jean Alesi, Damon Hill, and Gerhard Berger in the Grand Prix of Canada. The 16th running of this race here on the Ile de Notre Dame, just across the St. Lawrence River from Montreal. There is Gerhard Berger in the number 28 red Ferrari with Rubens Barrichello just behind him. Berger is a former winner of this race. Here you see the last 5. Alain Prost now retired. Berger, Nelson Piquet, the winningest driver in this race on this circuit with 3 victories. Ayrton Senna took a victory for McLaren back in 1990, one of 7 wins for that British-based team, the most of any constructor. And Terry Boutsen, as I mentioned, with the first win for Renault in the normally aspirated era. Down in the pits, Andrea De Cesaris in the Sauber.
And De Cesaris did a remarkable... If Mansell did come back, he would come out, and Coulthard flashes down the inside, and he will make a pit stop for tires and fuel.
David Coulthard brings the car in. I mentioned the fact that teams were out practicing this morning. David Coulthard was the only driver out practicing. You have to remember, this is only his 2nd pit stop during a race, but he's executed this one closely, and he's back out in the race.
In his first pit stop in Spain a couple of weeks ago, David Coulthard suffered an electronics problem. The engine stalled a couple of times. So all in all, I think he handled that one quite well. There is Fittipaldi. There is Jean Alesi running in 3rd, just a couple of seconds behind Damon Hill, as David Brabham brings the MTV SimTech car into the pits. $100 in cash that was meant to feed the mechanics, plus passports, airline tickets, jewelry, and the like. They got some of the material back, including their tickets and passports, but they were out the money. Although David Brabham was able to earn some of it back by speaking to a...
Flashes through a very fast 4th gear, right-left flick, and then down past the pits. There are raindrops beginning to fall on this front straightaway. No cars in front of Alesi, and you just saw 1 or 2 raindrops on the lens of his camera.
So we expect our weather to be changeable. Michael Schumacher pits. Now that's J.J.
J.J. Leto has brought his car in for his stop. Intriguing thing to point out, they have an extra man on the other side of the fuel, guys. He's there just to steady the car. They also keep the car in the air until all the fuel is down. Some of the teams drop the car and then put the fuel in. They send him back out on a very nice fuel stop.
They are in deep trouble here because they will have to stop for rain tires if the rain covers more than 2/3 of this racetrack. And remember, Schumacher has not made a pit stop yet, so this may play right into his hands. When he makes a stop, he may just take on wet.
Recall a couple of years ago at the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours, Jean Alesi and the Ferrari stayed out on slick tires in the wet. A pass right there as David Coulthard went underneath. I believe that was Gianni Morbidelli. You're riding now with Michael Schumacher, and you see the effect of the water.
Oh, you got to be careful now. It's so slippery. They have had no practice on this racetrack in the rain. First gear, second, third, fourth, but you can hardly count quick enough.
Rain now on the start-finish straightaway.
Take the little bits of wheel spin. Look at that dark cloud on the left. See the red lights? That tells them when to change. That's the Williams right ahead of them.
We're getting reports of lightning around the circuit.
He just wiped his visor.
This is where the rain was heaviest. It appears to have let up just for the moment. But a very intriguing twist here in Montreal. Stay with us. Back live at Montreal, you ride with race leader Michael Schumacher. Notice the dark clouds behind him. Tremendous peals of thunder beware Baldy to put him a lap down. There you see Rubens Barrichello bringing his Jordan into the pits. In all the shuffling, several cars have unlapped themselves. We've had as many as 12 cars back on the lead lap. At the moment, there are 10. You ride with Michael Schumacher. We'll take a quick time out and be back for more live coverage. I can't promise my voice will be here, but you can be sure I will be here in spirit. Stay with us. Back live and past the halfway mark. Time to take a look at our Haviland race recap. Michael Schumacher has led every lap thus far. He also holds fast lap of the race, but the racing behind him has been absolutely furious. Here are the cars out of the race. Andrea de Cesaris, his 200th Grand Prix start, ends in a disappointing fashion. His teammate Hans-Herald Freundsen, Martin Brundle, got in only a couple of laps at the beginning of the race, and Eddie Irvine of Ireland, who hit the wall on the pit straight. You ride with race leader Michael Schumacher. A few moments ago, Ukio Kadayama of Japan was back up to his old tricks. In fact, in this very corner, he still sits in the middle of the racetrack.
At the start of this season, the new Ferrari wishbones caused a lot of controversy as to whether they were legal or not. They are solidly mounted with the only movement coming through the flexing of the metal blades at the end of each wishbone. Designer John Barnard was looking for less friction in his front suspension, and he certainly stirred the controversy. The controversy continued with the introduction of new aerodynamic rules which greatly trimmed the front wings of all Formula One cars. And it also sliced huge chunks off the back of the downforce generating rear diffusers. A very different look indeed. Then after the tragic head injuries, Sauber introduced this new high-sided cockpit design to help protect their drivers' heads. To help prevent wheels from wrapping back into the cockpit, McLaren has developed this simple shear mechanism that literally breaks off the pushrod in the event of a heavy suspension impact. And everybody has their own idea of how these suspensions should shear off. There is no team has the same idea on how to do it. Williams, for example, at the other end of the pushrod that you see right here on the outboard end, have little machined marks around the bottom ball joint, so as that is the thing that breaks off and lets the wheel go away from the car instead of hang on to the car and possibly...
Of course, we've already talked about some of them. Longer cockpit opening to prevent the driver from striking his head and to aid emergency workers in getting an injured driver out of a car. The pit lane speed limit, pump fuel, and the airbox holes.
We move on. The longer cockpit openings will be introduced as new chassis are built, not on existing cars.
The minimum weight of the car has been raised to allow the engineers a little more leeway to make the cars more stout and safe. And as Derek mentioned, each team has its own method of trying to prevent the wheels from coming into the car by improving the suspensions. and adding improved materials to the headrest, including a new foam material that the sanctioning body, the FIA, tested extensively before providing to the teams. And beginning in France, we will have increased static load test, meaning the cars will be crash tested to a much greater degree than ever before in the all-important side pod that protects the driver on lateral contact.
Interesting, the foam that is now being chosen by most of the teams, 1,500 RPM. Just listen.
Remaining as Michael Schumacher passes David Coulthard.
And obviously Coulthard would have just seen the leader pulled over, not accelerated quite as fast, and is quite happy to just let Michael Schumacher go through. Now David Coulthard has one lap less to do.
We'll be right back. We are back live in Canada, the Grand Prix of Canada being led by Michael Schumacher. But don't forget, there is baseball coming your way tonight here on ESPN. Live Sunday night baseball as the St. Louis Cardinals visit the Philadelphia Phillies. Everybody's talking about Greg Jeffries, Lenny Dykstra, and the great seasons they're having. But what about the pitching matchup here? Bob Tewksbury, 8-4 for the Cardinals. Danny Jackson, 7-1 for the Phillies. The Birds hope to take 3 from the Phillies tonight, 8 p.m. live here on ESPN. Sunday night baseball. Damon Hill.
That audio is wrong.
Mix up in the audio of our onboard car there. Michael Schumacher is not slowing down. With just a handful of laps remaining in this race, he appears to be on track. Formula One. Here's a look. Maybe Mansell. Here are the races as they match up between Formula One and IndyCar. Now, all of this assumes, of course, that Nigel will attempt to run the non-conflicting races. There is also a rumor sweeping the pit lane that Frank Williams wants Nigel Mansell for the rest of the season, and it just remains to be seen what will happen. You ride with Michael Schumacher. Meanwhile, the other McLaren is out of the race.
Oh, no. This is a bit unfair for Mika Häkkinen because he was in a points-paying position in 6th place, which now he gives to Christian Fittipaldi. But again, the Peugeot V10 lets him down. You see it here. Smoke, debris, fluid, but his day is done. A little bit unjust for Mika Häkkinen.
And ironically, he parks his car in exactly the same place his teammate Martin Brundle parked his McLaren just a couple of laps into this race with electronics failure. It's remarkable how the pendulum swings in Formula One. Who'd have guessed that for 2 straight races, neither McLaren would finish? That's the way it is in motorsports. We'll be right back. Back live in Montreal, you see the stranded McLaren Peugeot of Mika Häkkinen. He's standing by now with Rick de Bruyne.
Standing by here in the McLaren pit with Mika. Not the place we wanted to see it. What went wrong? I'm not sure yet, but looking at...
More enthusiastic about whatever his performance level than this guy. I guarantee he's going to be fun to watch when he gets out of the car.
And I asked him in New York how he is so emotional. He said, if you consider 26 drivers in the world get to do what I do, he said, if I'm first or third to make it onto the podium, he said, it's something I only could dream about. So he said, I live the moment and enjoy every second of it. Continue to live the moment, Michael, because Lee, we live it with you. But look at this. One of the Ferraris never made it over the finish line. Is that Gerhard Berger? Well, we saw Alesi took the checkered flag, but did Berger make it all the way around? Yes, I believe he did. He did finish 4th.
Michael Schumacher heads for Parc Fermé. We'll be back with more live from the Grand Prix of Canada on the Ile de Notre Dame. Stay with us.
Because Schumacher's down.
We are back live in Montreal from high above the 1976 Olympic rowing basin next to the Ile de Notre Dame. Here's a look at the unofficial final results of today's Grand Prix of Canada. Michael Schumacher over Damon Hill. Jean Alesi was the driver who parked his Ferrari on the backstretch, flipped the keys to the valet, said, "Bring it around for me, would you?" Gerhard Berger managed to bring his Ferrari all the way to Parc Fermé. David Coulthard finishes in 5th position in only his 2nd Grand Prix race, and Christian Fittipaldi picks up the 6th and final point in today's race. Here's a look at 7 through 12. J.J. Leto, who started 20th. Rubens Barrichello, who threatened to make the podium today. Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell. Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. Pierluigi Martini. And Michele Alboreto, the teammates for Minardi. Olivier Panis, Eric Bernard, many of these cars failed to reach the finish line, although David Brabham did bring the new Simtech machine home, and that is good news for that modestly budgeted team. They had only one car here this entire weekend. David Brabham told me, "I knew I had to drive conservatively." 15 cars still running at the finish, which means attrition claimed 11 here today. As you can see, the pit lane has been turned over to the public for what I am sure will be a most enthusiastic victory celebration. It is always that way when Michael Schumacher, the newest superstar in Formula One, takes the podium. Let's go down to pit lane and Rick de Bruyne.
Well, standing here with J.J. Leto, let's talk about the race and how it proceeded for you guys. I mean, all in all, not too bad.
Well, it's not too bad. We decided to do only one tire stop, so it's just the cars were heavy in the beginning of the race. But we knew, you know, from the practice already that the tires are lasting pretty well, so that was the tactic. I mean, it's difficult to start from the back, you know. There's a lot of slow cars. They are fast on the straight line, slow in the corners, so it's very difficult to overtake them.
In the middle of the race, we had a little bit of rain conditions. Did it upset anything at all?
Not really. I mean, it was just a little bit wet, you know, on the other side of the circuit, but it's just only a couple of corners.
At the last minute, you also decided to jump into the spare car. Was that the right move?
Well, that was the right move. I decided to jump already in the morning because my car was very bad in the qualifying, and I thought that maybe it's better to try the T car. And it seemed to be working much better, so I took it for the race.
J.J. Leto at the end of the race.
All right, congratulations to JJ. Meanwhile, Gerhard Berger just climbed gingerly from his Ferrari, holding his right shoulder. A very long day for him. Stay with us.
I got cold.
Back in Montreal, Michael Schumacher listens to the strains of the German national anthem fade here on the Ile de Notre Dame. Let's get down to Rick de Bruyne.
David Colt, standing by with David Coulthard, just got your first points. This has got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, I'm very pleased because it's my 2nd Grand Prix, and to finish 5th and get some points, it's good for me, it's good for the team. I know that Damon finished 2nd, so that's good for the constructors, and hopefully we'll be able to have a little celebration tonight.
And hopefully it gets better from here. David Coulthard.
All right, thank you, Rick. Congratulations to David Coulthard, his teammate Damon Hill, and Jean Alesi. Flank winner Michael Schumacher. Once again, it was Schumacher über alles. Here's a look at the points. As a result of today's events, Michael Schumacher has 56 to Damon Hill's 23, a 33-point gap. Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger, the Ferrari teammates, tied for 3rd. In the Constructors' Championship, Benetton-Ford has a 56-point total, leading Ferrari, Williams-Renault, the 2-time defending champion, Jordan Hart, McLaren Peugeot, and Tyrrell Yamaha. Believe it or not, my voice actually made it to the end of today's race, although we're not quite there yet. Derek Daly, your thoughts?
I would like to have seen Martin Brundle have a fair crack this afternoon. Mika Hakkinen was robbed of championship points. I think McLaren are beginning to show the possibility of being a challenge to Michael Schumacher with a little bit more power from the Peugeot V10. But Schumacher and that Benetton seem to have a consistency of speed over the long period that will make them very difficult to beat.
No question about that. There at the podium on the left, Flavio Briatore, team manager for the Benetton-Ford team, accepts the Constructors' Trophy. In the middle, Michael Schumacher. On the left, Damon Hill accepting the runner-up honors. And on the right, a very happy Jean Alesi in 3rd place. 3 weeks before the teams will show up at Manicourt in France in the Loire Valley for the Grand Prix of France. And there will be plenty of testing, you can bet, going on between now and then.
And And you see the Schumacher flags there in Germany as we speak. They are building new grandstands because the demand for tickets to come and see their man Schumacher spray the champagne, hopefully, in Germany also is so great that they have not got enough seating or standing room for the number of Germans who want to join in this type of celebration.
The number we are hearing for the Hockenheim ring, 250,000 people or more, and it should be a grand celebration if their man Michael Schumacher can win there on home ground. You may be looking at the future of Formula One standing here today. Checkered flag coverage of this Grand Prix of Canada is coming your way Sunday, June 19th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. And our next stop on the Formula One World Tour will be the Grand Prix of France, live here on ESPN Sunday, July 3rd, 7:50 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:50 a.m. Pacific from Manicourt in France. A day that had just a little bit of everything, including rain to go with the sunshine, but one thing remains virtually unchangeable in Formula One, the Benetton-Ford team and the absolute brilliance of 25-year-old driving sensation Michael Schumacher. In fact, the countdown may soon begin to a possible first world championship for the man. I'm Bob Barsha for Derek Daly and Rick DeBrule. So long, everyone.